We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next we have public comment. We have one public comment today. So if you'd like to come up to the front, we have a microphone up here for you. And then if you just want to state your name and your municipality.
Oh,
Right here.
it's usually, oh, there it is.
Yeah, it kind of broke today.
Oh, it's like karaoke today. Good afternoon. I am Christine Martins. I am from Wausau Municipality. And today I'd like to just take a minute of your time to address a couple of things. At first, it was just going to be Marathon County Historical Society. But then I thought I'd throw in a good word at the end for University of Wisconsin Extension. These are two organizations that are very close to my heart. A big part of why I like being from Marathon County. And I would like you to consider these things as you go into budget season. Happy budget season. I wanted to say a few things, like I say, about Marathon County Historical Society and its importance. First of all is what you generally use them for, straight up with your contract from what I understand, which is storage of documents and items and such. But it's not just a storehouse. It's much more. They make sure these items are preserved properly, and they make sure they are available to people like myself whenever I need them. And even beyond that, they provide me with skilled, very knowledgeable staff to help me interpret these documents that I need, whether they're genealogical, land grant, whatever they have, even down to school records from old schoolhouses. They help me interpret these and tell me what it is it's saying to me. Not just, the hard script to read, but beyond that, the intricacies of it. They also provide context to all of our communities across the whole county. Even though their facilities are here in Wausau, they work with the whole county. They give the whole county context. You can't move forward without knowing what's in your past, or you can't move forward properly. And like I said, they do tell the story of the whole county. You walk into Marathon County and you will see items and explanations and stories and items from across the whole county. Like I say, any part of it you will know they are looking at the whole county. They provide programming for the full county. Even if the item is here in Wausau, they make it available online for everyone. Like I said, they have staff excellence. You go to a historical conference, which I've been to, state historical conference, and Marathon County is noted as having wonderful facilities and amazing people. Why would you not want to fund a true asset like that? And their excellence just keeps growing. It's amazing to me. A lot of what they provide to the community is free. One of my favorite things is the free exhibits. They have 3, the permanent and 2 rotating. And these aren't just your typical exhibits like a dusty toaster over here and an old computer disk over here or something. They explain the story. They connect it for you. They tell you why these things are important. What did they have to do with Marathon County? Again, the past is important for the future. They provide the Little Red Schoolhouse. 4th graders get all excited to go see what it was like in 1910. They provide programming, like I said, History Speaks, History Chats, Traveling Trunk, and if you need a speaker, they're there for you. You just let them know. Vintage Game Night, Story Time in the Gardens, Holiday at the Houses, all free. This is an important resource for your constituents, for me. They need funding. Do not cut their funding. They work across the county with lots of different Organizations, the CVA, the libraries. How many times have you seen Gary out speaking at the libraries about all kinds of things? Anna doing the same. They also provide tourism outlets. The Yawkey House is amazing. People come to see the Yawkey House. They go see the exhibits. So all in all, the Historical Society is beyond a storehouse. It deserves, it needs your funding. And just like I say, a minute longer, I apologize for rambling. It's very close to my heart. UW Extension, again, they provide for the whole county. They provide services and information that are science-based. So I don't have to go on the internet and trust your uncle's best friend's mechanic about what to do for my garden. Gardening is more popular than ever. We all want to provide for our family. We need resources. They provide information on safety, health, the economy across the whole county. They are a true treasure once again. And again, a lot of what they provide is free of cost to people like me, lifelong learners. Thank you. Turn it off.
Thank you for your comments today. I would like to thank the committee for rescheduling our meeting. Our topics today are important, and I wanted to make sure that we had as many people be able to attend as possible, so thank you for your flexibility in that. So next on the agenda is approval of the July 11th, 2024 Extension Education and Economic Development Committee minutes. Do I have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Rosenberg, second by Vice Chair Pfeifferich. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes. Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. All right, then on to 5. Policy issue discussion and potential committee determination. A, Marathon County government's role in providing affordable, high-quality external childcare. So to start this off with A, I wanted to just review our strategic plan a bit so that when we go on to B and we have Kelly Borchert do her presentation, we have just a kind of refresh our memory of what we are focusing on with this committee. One of the things is with childcare, it's in our different strategies. Objective 3.3, ensure that every person makes it to adulthood with health, stability, and growth opportunity. Strategy A, provide resources to reduce childhood trauma. Also, strategy C, develop a framework for building resilient children and providing parent resources. And strategy F, develop policies that support affordable, high-quality childcare. Outcome measure 3, by December 31st, 2024, the capacity to deliver affordable, high-quality childcare to children in Marathon County will increase. Objective 10.6, ensure the future availability of a skilled and flexible workforce prepared to meet the needs of both existing and emerging industries and technologies. Strategy B, seek out additional opportunities to partner with local education providers, secondary and post-secondary. And strategy C, develop policies that support affordable, high-quality childcare to enhance workforce availability. The income measures impacted are 1, 2, and 3. 1, by December 31st, 2024, the number and percentage of self-sufficient households in Marathon County will increase or remain the same. 2, by December 31st, 2024, the number of unfilled job openings within Marathon County will be reduced. And I have something to discuss about that a little later. And then 3, by August 31st, 2023, with input from non-EED supervisors and other Marathon County stakeholders, the EED committee will prepare recommendations for Marathon County government's role in supporting affordable, high-quality childcare. Objective 10.8, encourage development and redevelopment of key employment centers in areas that possess strong market potential, provide good transportation access for workers, and promote the efficient movement of goods. Strategy A, supports efforts to engage the public and private sectors to provide leadership for county economic development efforts. And strategy B, engage local municipalities on how county infrastructure development can contribute to business and industrial growth. Outcome measure 2 is impacted by December 31st, 2024. The number of private sector full-time and part-time employee positions in Marathon County will increase or be maintained. Objective 10.10, create an innovative atmosphere to foster an entrepreneurial, supportive environment. Strategy A, respond to changing economic conditions and opportunities through periodic review and updating of economic development strategies, policies, investments, and programs. Outcome measure 1 impacted by December 31st, 2024, the number of businesses will increase. So with that, I invite Kelly to come up for our 5B, consideration of offering a letter of support relative to continuation. Oh, that's sorry, wrong one. C, we're skipping B and moving on to C if that's okay with everyone. Discussion regarding 2020, that's the wrong one again. All right, let's see, where are we on here? We're still on A. I guess we just didn't have Kelly agendized on here, but it's part of A. So sorry about that, everyone. So Kelly Borchert from Child Caring is going to do her presentation that was in the packet so that we can discuss whether or not we would like to move forward with what she's going to explain to us. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. How is that? So, can you hear me okay? Thank you, Supervisor Marash. Again, I'm Kelly Borchert. I'm the Executive Director of Child Caring. I've been with the agency for nearly 20 years and in the early childhood field for about 35 years. So I have a lot of knowledge and information about child care and such. This first slide provides you with the mission of the agency that I work for. Many of you have been around this table a long time and have heard me speak about this, so I apologize if these are repetitive, and I see some great new faces too. So Child Caring is the local child care resource and referral agency covering Marathon County. Our mission is to support quality early childhood education and care by empowering a community of individuals who care for and nurture children. And our vision is that every child is prepared to thrive. So you can see how childcare fits very much into our mission and vision. So moving on here, you can. It's always good to let you know that Child Caring as a standalone entity is also part of an entire network of child care resource and referral agencies across the state of Wisconsin. You can see a little map up there. Child Caring represents number 6. We're the central part of the state. Our office is actually located in Mosinee, and we serve 10 counties across central Wisconsin. We're also part of a national Child Care Aware of America network that helps to provide support to all child care resource and referral agencies across the nation. You see Supporting Families Together. That's the statewide association here in Wisconsin where our funding from, for example, the Department of Children and Families flows through that organization. And so as an agency, we've been around for 30 plus years here in Marathon County. We serve families, child care programs, as well as communities. So we have resources for families who are looking for child care, and we also have programs to help them pay for care. We support child care providers in their efforts to become child care programs. We work them through that very detailed process of becoming a certified or licensed child care program. We support those child care providers with continuing education, consultation, referrals to their programs. So a great example is child care provider calls us and says, wow, I'm really having trouble with this 2-year-old in my care. They're biting and really struggling to get them, working in my environment. And so that's a great example of someone that we might help go to their program, check out what's happening, provide them resources and guidance around working with that young child. We might also have a family provider who may call us and say, I'm really struggling with getting parents to pay me on time. And so that's an opportunity for us to go and meet with them to talk about their policies, look at their employee or their parent handbook, and decide if there are some things that maybe need to be tightened up as far as when they're being paid and things like that. We also work in communities, and so this is a great example of how we help to create awareness of quality early care and education in the communities that we serve. I thought if you wanted a little bit tiny more information about child caring, I might leave with you our service brochure as well as our 2023 annual report that provides a really great snapshot of the services that we provide across central Wisconsin. Again, we're here as a resource to all of you as you work to determine your role within child care in Marathon County. That leads us to this unofficial child care work group. So we've been meeting for, a year or so. You can see there's Krista Jensen from Marathon County Social Services has been a part of our group. Supervisors Robinson, Lemmer, and Marash have been at the table. Kim from McDovco, Dave Ekman from the Chamber, and Renee from the Chamber. Myself and our Assistant Director, Mickey, have been meeting on a regular basis. Our group started out of our work over the last couple of years with the Dream Up grant that Marathon County received to help strategize and plan around childcare. And I've been here a couple of times over the last several years as well to present to you about the state of childcare and presenting data and information. And really, our unofficial work group started as a result of a resolution from a previous Supervisor Baker who was pretty dedicated to continuing those conversations for the resolution that did not pass at the time. So this is a little bit of history. If those supervisors want to add anything more about that, I'd welcome your thoughts. Otherwise, I'll keep on keeping on.
Does anyone want to share about the work group at this time or wait till later? Not at this time. We'll wait. Thank you.
So this is a slide that I've presented to this group over the years because it just shows us mainly the reason why we're meeting as a group, right? Like we have an extreme issue with childcare slots and capacity. There's simply not enough childcare here to support our working families. We went from 2012 having 199 regulated childcare programs, which is on the left side of the graph, down to, as of the end of June, we had 82 regulated childcare programs in Marathon County. So that's over a 50% decrease in the number of regulated programs. That includes both family childcare who provide care out of their home as well as group childcare centers. Since 2010, we've lost over 1,000 slots in those programs as a result of them closing. And you can see, if you look like, for example, in 1998, we had 450 programs. And so that's been a downward spiral for a number of years. And it's really important. I mean, we've talked at this committee level about why there's regulation and the purpose around regulation to protect the health and safety of children. And so it is really critically important to consider regulated child care programs when we're talking about increasing child care capacity. This, again, is a pretty astounding slide. According to a bipartisan Policy Center Child Care Gap Assessment report, Marathon County is expected to lose up to $112 million annually in income, tax revenue, and lost productivity. And if you break that down, what they're looking at is your household impacts of income losses to families from having to reduce their work hours or leave the workforce entirely. You're looking at the business impacts of not having enough childcare, where your workers lose productivity, future earnings lost as a result of turnover from families leaving the workforce, and your tax revenue. So we're losing out on household and business income that would have contributed to government revenues as well as future lost tax revenues when we don't have enough childcare. And so, we ask ourselves, why don't we have enough childcare? So one of the reasons why we don't have enough childcare, and we've been seeing this downward trend, is that there are some barriers to people entering the field. This is a snapshot of what it looks like to hire someone to work at a childcare program. So we know that childcare providers earn very little in comparison to other professionals. So you see here that in Marathon County, a lead childcare teacher makes just under $15 an hour. That person is in charge of an entire classroom and curriculum and working with families, leading a group of children, lots of responsibility. When that person wants to come in and work in childcare, there are some entry-level classes that they need to take. And so you'll see here there's 3 classes that are required. Those classes currently, they're non-credit based courses, which is the easiest way to enter into a childcare lead teacher role. They cost about $360. They're currently like a correspondence class that someone could take through the mail and send back and forth. So they are also required to have CPR and first aid, which is about $85. Abusive head trauma, $20. And so when you think about what it costs a child care center to pay this person just to complete that entry-level training, they might be paying, just if we're calculating it out at $15 an hour, 150 hours of training, that's $2,250 just to pay them for the time they're completing those entry-level courses. Some of the other onboarding costs that a child care program incurs would be criminal background checks and fingerprints, as well as a physical exam and TB test to work with young children. So again, another $40, $120. So the total new teacher cost to get someone on board, trained, and working in the child care program is $2,875 approximately for one staff person. And just to give you a sense of why this is a critically urgent time for us to address this entry-level training is because it's changing. So up until this point, child care providers, as I mentioned, were able to take some correspondence classes fairly simply, like through the mail, quite easily. But the Department of Children and Families has now revamped those classes, done some updates. It had been a number of years since that curriculum had been looked at. And so now, these child care foundational trainings needed to work in child care programs have increased the number of hours. So, for example, the intro to the child care profession class, they have to complete 50 hours of training. That's a combination of like in person with the facilitator as well as like the activities and homework required. So that first number 1 class is to be a child care teacher assistant. Number 2 is what they would need in order to be a lead teacher in a classroom. That's an additional 50 hours of training. Number 3, fundamentals of infant and toddler care is the class that they need if they're going to serve children under the age of 2. And then number 4 is meant for that family child care provider. So if you want to open a family child care program in your home, that's a requirement for you. So you can see in the chart, if you want to work in a group child care program, you need a total training hours of 150 hours. A family child care provider would need 130 hours of training. And that's changing again as of 1/1/25. All the old courses are going away. These new courses will now be beginning, and that will be the new requirement. So child caring is here. We want to help partner with the Marathon County Board, with the EED committee to help reduce these barriers for the child care workforce. And so as our committee's been meeting, we've been, of course, talking about strategizing, brainstorming ideas. What can we do? What are some things that might make some sense? And this is a concept that kind of came out of our last meeting together. And then I took the liberty of personally speaking to Jake Shallow from Wausau Child Care as well as Steph Daniels from the YMCA. Those 2 programs make up about 2/3 of the group child care center slots in Marathon County. They wholeheartedly stood behind this concept and helped me to craft that previous slide with some of those budget figures and things. But what we're proposing here is with a $200,000 amount of money, for over the course of 2 years, we could train up to 30 early childhood professionals with free training and support to get them into a regulated child care program, potentially opening up 240 slots for those teachers. It could be teachers in a group center, or it could be a family child care provider. You can see there's a cost associated with that over 2 years of about $50,000 to facilitate and deliver that training. But that's not the most important piece here, right? So we've talked about the wages of our child care teachers, and so we really have to think really carefully about how to incentivize those providers. How do we make sure that those people who've taken the time to complete the training, have free training, actually commit to working at a child care program for a length of time? And if we are able to offer $5,000 stipends per participant to each one of the programs where they've committed to working, that would help us to make sure that those programs stay, that those participants stay within those programs. We would assure that each of those participants would find job placement, and they'd be required to work at the program for a minimum of a year, although ideally 2 years would be super. Our goal really here with this proposal is to increase the number of trained early childhood professionals in Marathon County to provide greater access to childcare options for those working families. So we want to address, why. Why would you choose to support this? Why would you choose to work with, child caring? We've got a proven model of success at child caring. We contracted early in 2024 with the North Central Wisconsin Workforce Development Board to deliver this type of training. We've had 30 years of success in offering training and grants to child care programs. We were the agency that delivered the grants to the child care providers that the county received for the Dream Up grant. This aligns very well. I appreciate that Supervisor Marash went through the strategic plan goals and the priorities, because I feel like this really aligns well with what you're trying to figure out here. And by offering free training and incentives, it really does help to address the challenges associated with that low pay and overhead costs to onboard those new staff. And sometimes what's happening at these centers is they can get them through the onboarding process, but they are there for a week or 2 weeks and they leave very quickly. And so by having some commitment after completing the training, that would really help to alleviate that really quick turnover. Again, so we want to increase the number of qualified early childhood staff in local communities in Marathon County and provide more available spots for children, allowing families to work and building back our capacity, because we're still suffering those effects of COVID here in Marathon County by not having all classrooms open at the child care centers. Again, I think that not everybody understands the return on investment when you invest in early childhood and child care programs. There's been a lot of studies that say that as much as $1 invested, you can have a ROI of $4 to $9. And it's because you save so much on things like special education, incarceration costs, special education. Those are the ROI pieces when you invest in early childhood. It just helps to create really successful adults when we do that. And then I think I have a slide that welcomes you to please ask questions and comments.
Excellent, thank you for that. And if you don't want to stay standing up here, we can just include you in the conversation if that makes you more comfortable. Just to kick off discussion, like Kelly mentioned, we've been meeting for several months and trying to figure out what is the best way to move forward. And from my perspective, and I really do want to have open discussion about this, but from my perspective, we need the people to do the work is the most important thing. It's my opinion, because we can open up child cares, but we don't have anybody to work there. So by doing this, we open up an opportunity to partner with not only child caring, but also the ECDC. We had Janice Watson come in at the last time, I believe, and she talked about the population that she's working with. And she came to one of our work groups and discussed that she does have some women in the community that are interested in working for childcare. So that would be a fantastic resource to tap into. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to be here, but she did say she had several women that would be interested in participating in this. And as we know, their income levels are very limited, so a scholarship program like this would be very beneficial for them. We also met with I can't remember her name, from the city of Wausau for the community development block grants, and she also mentioned that they're Tammy Stratz, that they are interested in partnering with us too. And also Marathon County as our county and North Central Healthcare Campus, we met Lance Leonard and Chris Holman, myself, and Gary Olson met on Monday. And we're discussing the possibility of renovating that childcare space that had been previously used at North Central Healthcare, and partnering with maybe the YMCA or putting out an RFP to open that up. But then also the worry is that you would steal the workers from another place. Well, a program like this would help put more people in the workforce for different programs for everybody. So those are different things to discuss. That's about what I have to share. So I open it up to anybody to share thoughts or questions. Supervisor Unger.
Thanks, Madam Chair. A couple questions or thoughts. Is the incentive, the $5,000 stipend, is that going to the child care program itself or to the individual?
Is this on? Yes. Okay, great question. The $5,000 would be designated to the child care program. We would have guidelines around that funding to use that funding for the onboarding costs that are needed, as well as to build in some stipends and incentives along the way for that particular employee.
Okay. And the wage, are we, if something does, thank you, another question, a couple questions. So if we do get something going at North Central Healthcare, would this, their pay increase? Would that be just to say, is it $15 or is it going to be $10? Or, just because we're incentivizing giving them the education, but we still need to give them the pay. So is that something that was discussed? I mean, I'm just throwing out these
Something that
questions.
we were initially thinking about was, as an example, a $500 stipend after a 6-month of employment, perhaps $1,000 after a 1 year, and then perhaps as high as $1,500 after 2 years.
Okay.
And again, I think we have to allow a little bit of flexibility to the individual child care programs, because some might have other ways of incentivizing, but really need the funding to pay for the physical exam or something else. And we also thought about, how is this fair for the other workers at the child care program who maybe have been working a long time? And so that would allow each center some flexibility. Again, if they had, say, 3 participants, they may be able to utilize the funds for other staff as well as they sort of see fit.
And that makes sense. You don't want to pay,
Right.
to bring them all over. Yeah, that makes sense. And my last question is that $200,000, are we looking at asking the board, the full board, for that incentive?
So that would be ARPA, and it would go first to, of course, HR, Finance, and Property, and then on to the full board if they were on board with that idea.
Okay.
And it would sunset, it'd be 2 years, and then we would need to find, public-private partnership situation after that.
So $200,000 each year
No, for 2
for
years.
2-year commitment
Right.
for the $200,000. Okay. Thank you.
Vice Chair Pfeiffer.
Thank you. Child care and the issues with that has been something that I've looked at for a while now, and it's one of those things in the economic development world we never thought that we would be focused on, but really in the post-pandemic world, it has become a major issue. The last question actually helps to answer one of the questions that I had, which is what happens after 2 years. And I understand with the ARPA funding, we're looking at those deadlines, and that makes a lot of sense. But still, my question is, what happens after 2 years? It feels like we're creating a program that's going to get us a little bit further along, but I don't think we're solving the bigger issues. And I know the legislators looked at that and looked at potential reforms that may help to attack the bigger problem of low wages and the other things associated with it. But my question is, looking at that and the high turnover rate, with 1 year, that seems a very small period of time for the investment. I know it's not a huge investment, but it takes a whole lot to train a new employee, bring somebody on. with that 1 year, it seems like a really short period of time.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, so I addressed that question specifically with both Steph and Jake to say, what do you believe based on your history of, your teachers seems reasonable, right? And I think we all sort of said 1 year would have to be a requirement and 2 years would be sort of the expectation, but it might be hard and difficult to sort of recoup that money after, that point. So, yeah, I mean, and of course you think about what happens after the 2 years. I think that allows us more time to work with, our legislators and the government and the governor to determine, what's going to be the long-term solution here. $200,000 is not a long-term solution to solve our childcare issues. Absolutely not. It's a way to sort of keep us moving in the right direction and sort of save some of the providers that are really struggling right now.
Supervisor Rosenberg.
I'm not seeing any piece for employers. I see, where it benefits the county but it's also benefiting those employers. Shouldn't they be shouldering some of that social responsibility here? And I'm not seeing anything.
In this particular proposal, there isn't a piece necessarily for the employer or the business folks. I think we're still sort of leaning on Dave Ekman to help us understand what that could look like. This is really a means to build the workforce within the child care programs by getting them the training that they need. Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's important. This just isn't the strategy necessarily aimed for that. There's definitely ideas out there. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Vice Chair Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
Just a question, because I haven't seen the stats recently, but when I was a youth, my mom quit her regular job to start a in-home daycare, regulations associated with that. Just from what I saw and what I see now, the regulations are vastly different. And I'm just wondering what the breakdown versus group versus the smaller in-home daycares that we have within Marathon County or the region. I don't know what you have data for.
Yeah, I actually do have some data for Marathon County specifically. So again, we have a total of 82 regulated programs. 23 of those programs are group child care centers, so like your WASA child cares. Excuse me, 42 are family child care programs in-home. 6 preschool programs and 6 school-age programs serving that, a little bit older child. Does that help you?
Supervisor Unger.
Thank you, Chair. With that, once you train someone, is there a grant or incentive? Because if they're like an individual and they want to have, group, childcare in their home, but, putting forth the funds to train them, but what about all the regulations, things that they have to do in their home to make it accessible and safety and security-wise for that? I'm sure that's expensive. So is there something out there once they are trained that they are able to have, a grant come in?
Yeah, so family child care providers. So while this program could support a family child care provider, it would look a little different if it did. So the $5,000 stipend would go directly to that provider or program. They typically are their own sort of business owner, right? And so it looks different if it's a family child care provider versus someone that works in a group center.
Okay, sorry, thank you, I missed that. And then I was thinking that, what would they do, if they didn't have that extra resource?
And, child
So are you
caring.
are you gearing it towards either? Or are you just really wanting to get them into a group, the worker into a group?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really legitimate question. So child caring does have some supports for that family child care provider who wants to get started. We currently have some grants of $1,000 to help them with some of those startup costs that are associated with that. But it could be that if we had the family child care provider that was ready to commit to this, it could be offered a $5,000 stipend to that individual. I mean, it would open 8 slots. So it would be, it'd fit well within the scope of this work.
Supervisor Rosenberg.
I'm wondering, there's a lot of turnover, but I'm thinking to teachers. They've gone to 4 years of college. They want to teach, and they go, and you lose about a third of them in the first 3 years because this isn't what I thought it was. People coming into this program in good faith, like, I like kids, and then, oh, hold it here, they can't do it, and in good faith they can't do it. How do you address that piece of it?
Yeah, great question, right? So I think, is it the particular program maybe that they can't do, and could we place them within another child care center that they feel more comfortable, or the policies might reflect more of their own personal values or something like that, so we could work to place them within a different program? Maybe they have an interest after that of opening their own business. We often do get the family providers that have worked in group childcare that now want to sort of branch out on their own. So that's a possibility as well. But right, I think you're exactly right. Sometimes you just make the wrong choice for yourself and you have to go on and do something else. And so we'd have to look to recouping the funds or determine, best how to move with that. Yeah.
I'll add something to that. This past session, we did change the age to work at a child care center to 17 on special circumstances. They have to be with an adult supervisor. But a lot of schools like Mosinee will offer a child care course in their school for credit. Then they would get the experience inside these daycare centers to see if this is a career they would like to continue on. So that's something hopefully that maybe some of the schools will pick up on and offer it as a course, and let these young women and men maybe get a little experience in the field before, like you said. Same way I worry about social workers that come out of college and, some of the trauma they walk into, I've talked to Krista about that before, like, is there any way to do like a student teaching does for schools, something like that for social work, just so they know, rather than suddenly get PTSD on your first week. So.
Hello, this is Supervisor Marshall. I have a question.
Go ahead, Supervisor Marshall.
I know another individual had brought up what is the chamber's role on this, and I did listen at the last meeting where President Ekman had said this is and all entities need to be involved. I would like to see the county match funds from the employers in the Greater Wausau Chamber. They could pledge it through the community foundation or whatever, but I think that having buy-in from the businesses is key. As it was said, it really shouldn't fall all on the county. My other comment is that I do think that we need to have a clawback provision if someone does leave the field early. It is a commitment to make this investment. And if you would leave before, most employers have a 2-year clawback on when they provide training free of charge to their employees. Thank you.
Vice Chair Pfeiffer.
Yeah, I'm generally in support of what we're looking at here. I think also that we need to be looking long-term. Some of the regulations out there, and I definitely agree with the idea that there needs to be some business involvement in this from that side of it. There's some really forward-thinking companies right now that are taking this on, some of the bigger companies. But it needs to be some incentives for them to do so. We can't continue to rely on the government or other sources to provide funding to make these programs float. It's absolutely necessary. Great childcare is going to help out not necessarily just the workforce, but create good humans in this world, and that's something we need more and more of.
Let me just throw some overview in this, what's happened last session, what we maybe want to do next session. When the ARPA money ran out for the kids count at $340 million, they wanted to take it out of the general fund. And that's where the heartburn came in, because it wasn't really fixing this, it was just supplementing into the child care system. It wasn't fixing the need. And so that's why when they came to me, I tried to do like I did with the VOCA funding, a Band-Aid to get us through to the next budget. I said, how much can you guys live with? And they said 100 mil. So I came to my joint finance, and they, didn't even open the door for me for that either. So the thing is I agree. I do think it needs to be a three-legged stool where the parents are paying into it, and then the business either matches the parents or put their portion in, and that's with the government. We match the business. We can work either through workforce development or economic development. Either way, I don't see this as some of my colleagues think it's they're paying for babysitting. No, you're not. It's the most important time in a child's life. And so it's an investment into the future to have our kids invest early. So I'm going to try to keep pushing that. Representative Jill Billings, who's my ranking member on the Child Care Committee, or Children and Families, we went to a child welfare summer down in Naperville this summer. Indiana and Michigan have some pretty good programs. We're going to both look at trying to get through. Now, Michigan just passed one very similar to what you think you want to do for the county. And that is they put $2 to $5 million in to educate new folks that want to get into this, to use that, to train them, and also to open up their businesses. They also made it possible where the most expensive time, 0 to 3, for the subsidies that are being paid for some of the lower income folks, that they get contracts for it than day to day, because it's a little bit, they don't know for sure if someone shows up or doesn't show up. So, the money isn't there. The state now will cover that as a contract for those lower income individuals that are using that. So those are good ideas. Something that we need to talk more about right now is 4Ks being taken over pretty well. Sometimes contracts for the public school system. Right now, public schools only get 1/2. Instead of 1 FTE, they get 1/2. They're thinking of maybe moving that up to 4. Public schools also kind of getting a little bit more aggressive, wanting to take the 3-year-olds over, but that's when the daycares are saying, wait a minute, our most expensive time is infants, and you're taking away our profit time of 3rd and 4th-year-olds, 3 and 4-year-olds. So those are other hurdles that you have to cross over. But I do think the solution in this is a partnership between business, their employee, and the state, because it's workforce development. It's a 2-income families now, and some of the businesses, I'm hearing rumors, Greenheck might open a child care center for their facility, for their employees. Okay? I've heard a lot of businesses when I've had meetings say, we really don't want to get in that business, but they're willing to pay money for their employee. I think another thing that would be very beneficial that I'm going to try to work on with insurance companies is get all the daycare workers that are teachers in there to form a huge group so there'll be lower income and everyone can get insurance. Because I think that would be help some of these centers maybe raise salaries if they know there's insurance out there for these individuals. So those are some of the things, but I think the top thing is what you said, is it's got to be a public-private partnership. In the days of when my wife and I had kids, I was up in the morning with radio and she worked second shift as a nurse. So we were able to balance that pretty well. Some families did that, others didn't. You can't do that anymore. You have to have it. So business, and we have to get it done. Simple as that. If we don't, we're going to lose all these kids to other states, and we have to copy what's been working well. And I think Indiana and Michigan both have done some pretty good work. So if anyone has more questions, I'll answer.
Yes, so what we would be looking for today would be a motion to approve staff moving forward to work with Child Caring on coming up with an agreement or the program for how we want to go forward with this concept, because that's what it is right now, is a concept. So if we wanted to have staff work with Child Caring to draft something up that we can bring back to the committee to go over at that time and make revisions if we want, or that's what we're looking for. And if we're not ready to do that, then we table it and we discuss it again. So
I would make that motion utilizing ARPA money for the 200,000.
Okay, so the motion would be to approve staff to move forward to work with Child Caring to use $200,000 of ARPA funds for a concept scholarship program for child care training. Do I have
I'd
a
second that.
Okay.
But I'd also say that they should be looking into employers, some of the things we've talked about here, not just this narrow.
Right, so to work on an agreement, work on a different concept, come back to the group, and then we could approve it from there or tweak it, correct? Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, group.
Hopefully in 2 years, we'll have state covering the money that you're doing right now for the same thing.
Right. I think it's a positive step forward because we are in a crisis. It is affecting our workforce development here in Marathon County. People aren't moving here because they can't get a slot. When you have parents putting themselves on a wait list 2 years before they even get pregnant, that's a little scary. And that sounds like that isn't true, but it is. So, okay, 5, yes. Go ahead, Supervisor Robinson.
I just have a question because is the intent to advance the work or to make the request, the ARPA request, or both? Because I don't think it's clear in
The intent is to have staff work to develop a plan to use ARPA. But it's not,
I would say it's a two-prong approach in my motion, that we should be looking at going through the process to receive an allocation of ARPA money, and then we also need to do this. I know it seems a long ways away, December, but I know we're going to get awfully itchy around October, November with unallocated money.
If I could just comment on that, I think if you don't have an allocation by the end of October, you're not going to get one. So, and we finance met yesterday and received an update. We've got about $1.2 million, but we haven't reconciled and clawed back. I think we'll probably get that up to 2.1 million potentially that will need to be obligated by the end of the year. You might want to make sure that there's some flexibility in the intent to work with parties and not necessarily child caring exclusively. I would want to have Mike Perner weigh in on whether or not we're following our procurement policies relative to it, and with the understanding that you could advance the discussions with child caring.
okay. Got all that, perfect. Okay, so 5B, in the consideration of offering a letter of support relative to continuation of the child care account stabilization program to state elected officials. So this was an idea I had after I read the letter from Governor Evers after they put out the 2024 survey. Hopefully you guys read it. That's why I asked Representative Snyder here today so he could explain exactly what had been going on and how we got to this point. So if you wouldn't mind speaking on that, Representative Snyder.
Sure. Well, we had I think in so many other ways, all the COVID money that came in, we're seeing it now even in public schools. They were flush with money during that time, and now that's disappearing a little bit more. And so the need either to match it or to try to survive it is a big challenge. We had $340 million that was in the kids' counts to keep them afloat, to keep them going. And that was there. Now, with it running out, I think the governor put some money in. I can't remember. Do you remember, Kelly, how much you put in?
I don't recall the exact amount, but the funds were cut in half and they're through June of 25.
Right. So he used some of his ARPA money he has left. I think he still has somewhere around $500 million or even $1 billion left of that. So maybe he will address that down the line to help us get us through. But it's just the one thing we have to be cautious of is that the Legislative Fiscal Bureau says right now our revenues are down at this time. which this is the first time this has happened. Don't quote me for sure, but in the last maybe 8 to 10 years, our revenues have been going up. That's why we see some surpluses and things to that nature. So we're hitting a little bit of a snag right now. So budgets are going to be starting to put together as we move along. And I'm sure the governor will come back with the $340 million to help this industry along. But again, my vantage point is we have to find ways of fixing and correcting and maybe new innovations to make this work, rather than constantly put money into a system where it doesn't seem to be working. You know, we're seeing that at the Milwaukee Public School System. All the money that's gone in, and they still are struggling to try to get that upright and working well. So money isn't always the answer. So that's why this approach, it'll be interesting to see. I think it'll be the same thing. I don't think unless everything flips, you know, then I imagine the money will flow, and, you know, we just have to be cautious about overspending again, as we did back in 2009 and 2010. That kind of got us into the trouble, which led to, which a lot of people hate, Act 10 and other things like that to save money. So it's a balancing act there. But they're putting their budgets together now. We'll see what it will happen. I know, Kelly, you probably got some input in that as well. I would encourage folks here to maybe reach out to the governor's office as he puts it together, reach out to Secretary Amundsen of the Department of Children and Families to see what they plan to do with child care, if anything different on that account, what kind of money. But again, as I kept telling my caucus and others, that we have to get this as a workforce development issue with the businesses and the state investing along with the families. This isn't something that we're just giving money for this. I think if we do something like that, the money will be there to raise the salaries of the workers, and because this is an important time in a child's life, to be able to learn and move forward. And then not only that, but in the insurance is important, and with an industry like that. And I also think when you come up to the north, besides Wausau, I really do think an emphasis on home licensed daycare is important for some of our rural areas. You know, you get to Merrill, or maybe you get to Anago, or even some of the towns with less than 2,000. If there are 2 or 3 in-home licenses, that would help some of those areas rather than commute all the way to Wausau or a larger city. So we have to incentivize that as well to try to help do that, either through regulations or, as I mentioned, what Michigan's done, putting money in to invest them to get into the business, to get all the hurdles of the $2,100 at a cost to get started, to help them get their homes up to standard to be able to have children in there. So those are the things that we incentivize and move forward with. But if it comes through with asking for $340 million, again, I just don't know if that's getting through. And then not only that, what happens the next budget? Do we just go another 340, or now do we go to 400 million? Again, the question of finding the answer to make it sustainable without going deeper into debt as a state. So I don't know. I can answer any questions you have. That's kind of it. We'll know more when we hit the ground running in January. But I know that Representative Billings and I are going to be pretty busy trying to work on this ourselves. And that makes it bipartisan, which, as I tell my committee, kids are bipartisan. It's not R or Ds. So.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No? Okay, so the idea was, and it was, like I said, just an idea, if we would be interested in doing a letter of support relative to the Child Care Account Stabilization Program, asking them just to work together because they don't seem to want to work together to come to an agreement on how to move forward to structure a sustainable and effective program to assist child care providers in our state. So like I said, that's just an idea, and we can move on or move forward. It's up to you guys. Supervisor Rosenberg?
I guess I'd like to see us move forward with a letter. I don't know who wants to craft it.
Well, we would have staff craft it.
Okay. Should I make a motion to?
Sure.
I'll make a motion to offer a letter of support for continuing child care account stabilization program to the state elected officials.
Okay, anyone with a second? Supervisor Unger with a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're on to 5C, discussion regarding 2025 annual budget development and policy recommendations from the committee, including review of the mandatory discretionary program document and discussion of rates and fees. So with that, C1 is consideration whether to continue funding for the Marathon County Historical Society Services contract in the 2025 annual budget. Is there anyone that has any comments or questions regarding that line item? No? Supervisor Rosenberg?
Yeah, I think we should continue funding it at the rate we've been doing it.
Okay, so is that a motion?
Sure.
Okay, so the motion is to continue funding the Marathon County Historical Society Services contract in the 2025 annual budget at current rates. Second by Supervisor Unger. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And then 2, consideration whether to continue funding for McDevco Services contract in the 2025 annual budget. Okay, so Supervisor Unger.
Sure, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue funding for McDevco Services for the 2025 annual budget.
Excellent. A motion, a second by Supervisor Rosenberg. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. 6, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy. A, none. B, none. And 7, educational presentations and committee discussion. A, update from McDevco. So Kim, thank you. Sure, if you'd like.
Well, hello, everybody. Okay, now I can hear myself. I'm Kim Weber. I think everyone in this room has heard me do this presentation multiple times. So if at any point you want to take over the mic and carry on, I understand. But I just want to take some time to kind of share what McDevco has been working on, not just this past year, but in the prior years leading up to today, and what we've built in partnership with the county support. So McDevco is really focused on 3 specific areas. So that's municipality partnership and connection, collaboration, gap and microfinancing, and recently POUTS financing, which we'll touch on, and entrepreneurial education and programming, as exemplified through the program sessions that we offer, as well as the management that we do of the business incubator. So I'm going to start with gap and microfinancing. So for those that don't know, gap financing is when a business comes to a bank, or maybe they go to a municipality and there's a gap in a project. Where do they go? They may not have many options. There might be low equity in the deal, and they might just not have a lot of startup funds or personal collateral based on just their life journey. And oftentimes what we see are there's some really great ideas that we'd love to get to the finish line that would further enhance our community. And McDevco offers that resource to be able to partner with the municipality, with the lender, to make that project whole. So we worked with Marathon County to amend our loan policy to be able to allow us to lend up to 40% of a total project. Prior to that, we were only able to contribute up to 20%. We've all seen what's happened the last few years. It's a rising rate environment. Lenders are a little more conservative with some of their management of how they're dispersing these funds. So we thought it would be a really great way for us to be able to assist these projects and continue moving things forward at a time when we need it the most to attract talent to our communities. So we administer loan funds on behalf of Marathon County, City of Wausau, as well as some other private partners. And this is the same across the board, what we're able to offer. With that, we took a deeper look at what's happening around us and wanted to make sure that we had an option for entrepreneurs that were either starting or in business that maybe needed a little bit of financial assistance. It could be that they were starting up and they just really didn't qualify for a line of credit or a loan in general, and they didn't need anything above $25,000. It could be that they've been in business and they need a little assistance purchasing inventory and mitigating some costs in a rising rate environment. Or it was a business owner that wanted to make a strategic pivot and maybe invest in a piece of equipment for automation of their business to address some of the gaps that we have in workforce. So we worked with Marathon County as well as our partners at the City of Wausau and created a county-wide program where we do microloans where we're not working with a lead bank, which is typically how we've always done business. So we had to change too. These loans are up to $25,000. They're 3% interest. There's a 90-day payment deferral, and there is no prepayment penalty. So the idea is to make this capital accessible to folks. And what's really great about it is it can be used creatively. For example, if I'm working with a lender and a borrower only needs $19,000, I'm not going to necessarily put them in a gap loan product at a higher interest rate. This is going to be a better option for them to be able to have a more viable business as we look at their projections and what's potentially going to happen as they navigate their first few months in business. The third loan fund that we administer or type is the Private On-Site Wastewater Treatment System Loan Fund. That's a loan fund we've been administering in partnership with Marathon County since last year. Some of you may remember the dialogue that was had at the ERC committee, repurposing some funds that had been set aside with the focus being to clean up groundwater in Marathon County. This has been one of our most successful loan funds in the last 12 months, and we've dispersed just shy of $150,000, which is pretty remarkable considering we started the agreement last fall, and there's very limited time, even with the mild winter, to get those septics installed before the ground freezes. So that's been a very wonderful program. So essentially, folks in rural Marathon County of low to moderate income status can get access to capital to replace their failing septic when they've been receiving notices that their septics are failing. These are 3% interest loans, very lengthy amortizations, meaning those payments are going to be small and manageable. So that's financing, and this all kind of works together as we move through. So the next I'm going to talk about is entrepreneurial development and programming. So McDevco's been in entrepreneurial education for some time. In 2021, it kicked off its Gear Certificate of Entrepreneurial Excellence program. It's a 16-week class guided by 16 different mentors to teach you a little bit that you need to consider about a lot of different things when you're starting a business. It's going to be more generic because we have to serve, we've got medical businesses that come through our doors, we've got service-based, we've got some private practice type things. So it all has to be general service. But essentially what they're getting is a touch of what are some of the things I should consider, from sales and use tax to financing, budgeting. If you are going to hire employees, what do you need to understand about thresholds of headcount? What are some legal things you should consider? What's the difference between buying or leasing? And what should you consider when you're signing a lease? What are you looking for in those agreements? So we're really trying to educate folks about how to launch their business. Previously, we saw about a 30% success rate in folks launching post-class. We're at about 50% now. Our class sizes are about 15 students that we take in, and about half of those will launch coming out of the class. It doesn't mean the other 50% did not. It just means that maybe they reconsidered and said, you know what, this isn't for me, or I need more time. My idea isn't funneled enough, or I don't have enough streams of revenue to support my business. So that's our Gear Certificate program, and that's one that through the education services contract that we have with Marathon County, we administer every year. Aside from that, we do varying workshops, and they change every year because the economy changes and what business owners need changes. So this past year, we focused on sales and use tax, and we were actually educating in that class a group of accountants that serve many businesses in our community about how to have a tighter acumen around that very important topic. We usually do a QuickBooks workshop. Social media, we used to do marketing and advertising, but then really drilling into how are folks reaching the population. And we just tailor that. We have a partnership with UW-Madison where their legal team comes in with students that are in law school, and they provide free 30-minute consultations to members of our community. And it's an ongoing resource that we actually use throughout the year. So a lot of different programs and classes. And what's really great is we manage the Entrepreneurial and Education Center. So this all kind of dovetails together. You'll see, you've heard this many a time, but McDevco assumed the management of the facility in January of 2021. At that time, coming out of the pandemic, it was 59% full. We left 2023 with an occupancy of 88% and worked with the EEC Board of Directors to implement a tenant tenure policy where we worked with tenants that had been there in a large excess of time to help them transition out into the community. So in working with the EEC Board, we have made some of those strategic pivots and moves to vacate some of the space that we need to bring in new businesses, but we've still been able to maintain an occupancy at that 84%. What's great is McDevco has resources to help you leave, and we have resources to help you grow within the space. We offer our educational courses at a discount to the EEC tenants. We also do a special workshop for our EEC tenants on financing. We bring in a commercial lender to talk about SBA financing, traditional commercial financing, municipalities to talk about what's available potentially through their local governments, as well as what McDevco can do so they can creatively package the growth of their business, because I think we've all seen that it's just very different than back in the day. You'd go just say, I'm going to put 20% down and I'm ready to go. It's a little bit more intricate now. So we're really trying to educate them on what that might look like. We also integrated a piece into that about building equity. When you're renting, there's a time and a place, and your place might always be to rent. That might be is what's best for your business, but we want them to understand how you could potentially create equity by using some of these resources that are available to your business. So that's a little bit about what we offer. We also manage a co-working space within the facility that is McDevco's. Our desks are about half full. And I'd like to point out that with our educational sessions, we've hosted over 135 sessions since 2021. We're a staff of 2.5, and we just keep trying to think of ways to reach the community. And through platforms like this, we've been very successful in bringing folks to our facility. We also do host quarterly municipality meetings where we're bringing the municipalities together to discuss relevant topics and things of that nature. And that's also a great resource for our tenants as they look to leave the facility. If they need land or a certain building, we can help connect them with the municipalities in our area to keep them in Marathon County. So I will pause there for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Kim? No, you did such a great job. Nobody's got any questions. My pleasure. Thank you very much. Okay, so 7B, review of 2024 second quarter budget to actual reports for departments of oversight.
I can take that one, Madam Chair, if you'd like.
That would be excellent. I would appreciate that.
All right, so this committee really only has library in terms of county departments that it oversees. Just navigating here to the sheet. So you'll see that this is for the second quarter reports. So as the departments go, the percentages, sometimes this one's actually pretty neat in terms of how the numbers are rolling up into the quarterly report for budget to actual. In other departments, you might see some percentages that look off. That's primarily a function of the mapping, which we know about and we're working on. So these reports will continue to improve. But this one here from the library is pretty straightforward, shows essentially what you'd expect to see for the June timeframe, roughly halfway through the year. Nothing too extraordinary in terms of anything over or under budget. Every department has this employee benefits number. That's again a function of the mapping number, and it's also a relatively smaller number. So it's has a larger footprint on the report than it probably deserves. But nevertheless, this is a good example of what we have available currently for departments, and you'll see them in other committees. The library, I don't think, is here to discuss this, but again, it's very straightforward. If you have questions about this particular one, or if you see things in other departments and other committees when these reports come up, happy to answer those at any time. So there, a lot of the time it just takes the local accountant who kind of knows where that number rolled up from to just explain what it is that you're seeing until we get that, worked out with the IT side versus the finance side.
Thank you. Oh, Jeremy, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think extension should be in here as well. So I think it maybe just got missed this round.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the report, but it didn't get put in. So just in the future, we can include that. Yeah.
It is in the HRFP packet. If you want to pull it up from yesterday, it would just be 600 pages of looking for where it is.
We'll bring it to the next meeting.
Yeah, well, that'll work.
Sure, it's in such great order, we don't even need to.
We're at 54.82%. So yeah, it's a small budget, pretty easy to go through. But yeah.
Thank you for that. I just have a question. I'm not sure I can ask it, but I'm going to anyway. Is the situation with the elevator at the library?
Great question. So for those who aren't familiar, the elevator had been posing some challenges for people in the sense that it would kind of freeze in certain locations or stop working. For quite some time, you were able to reset the elevator in order to get it to work, and that became very important when you had people who were, say, in a wheelchair who couldn't get back down the stairs. So that was an issue I raised up with the administrator and Corp Counsel just to make sure that we in the library were on the same line in terms of if we got to a point of how do we navigate that we were able to give the library some good advice for ADA considerations and things like that. But for the elevator, the resetting of it was actually problematic because whenever the staff would do it, whether that facility staff or library staff, it would wipe the diagnostics that the elevator maintains that tells you what's going on. So the last time that it stopped working as it should, we had made sure that all staff knew don't hit the reset button. We're going to get the technician out at no small expense to go and get the diagnostics and figure out what was going on. So they did that. They pulled the diagnostics. There was some cleaning with the locking mechanisms on the second floor and some lenses, and that seemed to be holding it up on the second floor. So they did the work that the library or that the elevator was telling them was wrong. And since then, I haven't received a phone call as facilities director or deputy administrator in terms of that library, that elevator malfunctioning. That being said, the county owns approximately 20 elevators across all the buildings, and many of them are in need of modernization. So you'll see that in future discussions with capital improvement.
Thank you for that. Supervisor Rosenberg.
Are all the elevators maintained by an outside contractor, or does any of it get done by our own people?
The elevator world is a very proprietary one, and the vendors who operate in that space are reducing over time. So the two brands of elevators we had are the one company bought out the other, so effectively we have one. The contracts you enter essentially require that you use them to service the elevators. It is a serious expense, so when things go wrong, it's not cheap to resolve it. But that being said, it's something that, regardless of where you are, Marathon County or otherwise, it's an industry that is highly specialized, and people don't typically have staff that can then go and work on the elevator themselves. We certainly don't, and so we rely on them. Because of the high costs of calling in repairs, if there's things that we can limp along a little bit, like the elevator's still working, it's not posing the kind of dilemmas we were talking about just now, then we have a good relationship and communication with the technicians that come through, and so we'll just maintain a list. And so then when they come for the routine maintenance, which costs less hourly rate than the contractual, than the episodes of problems, they'll take care of that all at once. And so that's a way we try to save some money in terms of when those things need to get fixed. Of course, if it's something more catastrophic or problematic, then you got to get them in, and it's not inexpensive.
Okay, thank you. One thing that I need to go back to is back to 5A in just the discussion. We don't need a motion or anything, but having that meeting on Monday that I mentioned about the North Central Healthcare Facility, is that something that this committee would be interested in having staff move forward as far as seeing if it would be a good idea, how much it would cost to renovate, if we would want to go out for RFP for something like that? Supervisor Rosenberg?
I'd be interested in the discussion.
Just having staff go and, a fact-finding mission to see what we're really looking at.
Yeah, just the 10,000-foot view, what are we looking at, or is this nuts?
Right. Okay, so we'll do that. And then that takes us to 8.
Right.
Next. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry,
That's
Supervisor
okay.
Lemmer.
I just wanted to touch base with an email that I had sent with you that the administrator thought during our budget discussion it could happen regarding the extension and the. Do you remember? I'm not sure if it's not officially agendized, but the administrator said it could happen under 5C under our normal budget discussion. And is it possible that we go back and I'll get the group updated on what I'm talking about? But after Mr. Ekman came and talked, I really felt like we needed a economic development plan somehow to work with somebody in a cooperative and a coordinated effort. And I know we have McDevco who does some wonderful things, but I don't know if it's very coordinated. And so I had talked with Jeremy about, is it possible to get an economic development position? The administrator had said we really didn't have one in the past. We had a different, maybe a family educator. But he said if we were to kick around that idea, we would really need to figure out funding, and we would need to figure out if the position's available. And so I just wondered if we could talk a little bit more about that.
Go ahead, Jeremy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So based on the email from Supervisor Lemmer, I did do some initial inquiry into positions. So this would be a community development position. There has been a community development position in the past, probably 3 years, Supervisor Robinson, maybe somewhere in there, 3 or 4 years ago. That position was eliminated. The position, the funding was shifted to the horticulture educator as part of that. So anyway, through time, there's been a variety of different positions. And there's a couple of different scenarios for funding a position. One of those is obviously the ideal approach from the county's perspective, and that's a co-funded position, which we have in place with the agricultural educator, 4-H educator, where the county pays a flat rate, which is a little bit less than 50% of the position. That requires that extension at the statewide level have a position available to co-fund, an FTE available. The other scenario is that the county provides the full funding for the position, and that's at the cost of the position to the county. In my inquiry about kind of where our status is at with the extension of whether we have an FTE, I have, I would say, tentative willingness to look at the possibility that we could provide co-funding for the position, for a community development position, depending on where the county board wants to go with that. So I think it seems possible to me. There was all the way up to the dean level interest in exploring that, so that seems like a possibility. And as an example of what position would do, the closest position that I currently have in the 4 counties that I work in is in Wood County, and that's very much an economic development focused position. They have a county economic development plan called the READY Plan, and basically that role is implementing that plan. A lot of community organizing focused on economic development priorities. Housing is one of them, you know, whole host of things, entrepreneurship, things like that. So be working with existing partners and efforts to provide leadership there. So I could see something like that, you know, working here. That position and the details of that would be developed in collaboration with the committee and other partners. So all that to say, I think it's possible to go that route. So I would just, you know, and we don't have to have answers right now, but, you know, look for direction of what you would like me to bring back in the future, and I can do that.
Supervisor Pfeiffer?
I'd be interested in an agendized discussion at a future meeting on that. The one concern I have is about duplication of services within the area. We have a lot of different economic development organizations, and there's a better solution to what's happening now. And I've struggled with what that is. But just to add another piece, I don't know if that's the answer, but I'd like to have a good discussion on that.
Excellent, thank you. Supervisor Lemmer?
In one of the conversations that I had with the administrator, he had talked about, you know, where to find that funding. And there were lots of different things with maybe different foundations. Maybe it is just working with some of the groups that are already there, which in my opinion would be probably most efficient. I'm just not sure which one is the one to go with. So when you come back, would you be able to come back with a slate of options in that respect on how things could run through your department or other groups we would coordinate with? Is that you and the administrator having that conversation?
Yeah, potentially. and maybe Supervisor Pfeiffer as well would be able to provide some input there. As I would have some idea of how things are working and, you know, what's worked in other counties. I wouldn't have the full view of what's going on here, so we could connect to lay out some ideas. And from a funding standpoint, like I can, you know, provide breakdown of it, costs and all that pretty easily. And those, just to plant a seed related to that, like our associate 4-H educator, there's private funds that come in through extension. The county pays for the position, but it's private funds coming through the county to pay for that. So there are things to play with there. Like it doesn't have to, as you said, just be county money. There could be revenue as part of that too. So we can look at all that, but I can follow up. Yeah.
Supervisor Robinson?
I just would encourage you to try to define what the role is. I think one of the reasons we don't have a community development person through UW Extension was frustration through the broadband process, where they could work to a certain step and they had to step away. And so the continuity got lost. So I think there are limitations within Extension in terms of their mission and purpose. So I think the first thing you have to do is define what it is that you want this person to do, and then you can then evaluate whether or not Extension, McDevco, or some other entity is the best way to move forward.
Anybody else? Nope. Okay, thank you for that. And with that, we will move down to 8, next meeting date and time, announcements and future agenda items. So we've decided on an agendized discussion for this position we just discussed. Committee members asked to bring ideas for future discussion, and thank you, Supervisor Lemmer, for bringing that up and bringing us back to that topic. Next meeting, Thursday, September 5th at 3 o'clock. So all in favor, I would take a motion to adjourn. Got a motion by Supervisor Pfeiffer, a second by Supervisor Rosenberg. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.